Imagine, just for a moment, that you're not lying in your own bed tonight. Imagine you're me, a quiet narrator, drifting beside you, holding a lantern made of soft gold light, and inviting you to step through it. Because tonight, we're not just talking about ancient Egypt, we're walking into it. So, close your eyes if you want. Let your shoulders melt, and picture this. A slow, pale gleam behind your eyelids, the kind that comes before sunrise. The desert has a way of waking before people do. It stretches, exhales, and warms long before you're ready. Now open your eyes inside our story. You're no longer in a room with paint on the walls and a neat little clock ticking beside you. You're in a reed hut on the west bank of the Nile. And the sun, Ra himself, is already pushing his way through every gap in the weave like he owns the place. Warm at first, then warmer, then insistently bright. Ancient Egypt does not believe in gentle mornings. Your bed, well, bed is a generous word. It's a straw mat with a linen sheet that feels like someone whispered the idea of fabric over a handful of reeds. You roll a little, and something crunchy follows you. Sand, always sand. It's like an eager roommate. It sleeps with you, eats with you, and refuses to pay rent. The air is still cool enough to breathe comfortably, but you can feel the promise of heat. Not noon heat, but the slow building kind that's patient and confident, the kind that thinks, I'll see you soon. You sit up. Outside, a donkey brays like it has opinions about being awake. A few palm fronds rustle lazily. A pot clinks 2 huts over. Someone coughs. Life here starts early, not because anyone wants it to, but because the sun is an impatient supervisor. Your feet touch the ground, warm already, and you stand, stretching your spine as if you've been folded in a drawer all night. Your linen tunic hangs loosely, light as breath, and yet somehow sand has found its way under it. Ancient Egypt doesn't do personal space. Stepping out of your hut is like stepping into a bowl of warm honey. Thick light, soft haze, a breeze carrying the scent of water and earth, and something else, something fishy and ancient and absolutely alive. That's the Nile calling. You walk toward it, still blinking sleep away. Reed boats drift lazily. Birds skim the surface. A pair of children are already at the shore, splashing their arms like enthusiastic little herons. You kneel by the water and cup a handful close, watching sunlight catch on its surface. You can't drink this, not yet, but it feels good against your face. Cool, textured, a little murky. You splash again, and for a heartbeat, the world feels like it's holding still, letting you breathe before the day starts tightening its grip. And while you're kneeling there, let me softly slip in the only little curiosity question I'll ask tonight. Where are you listening from? Sometimes it's comforting to imagine all of us, different time zones, different nights, touching the same quiet river for a moment. You straighten and breathe deeper. Somewhere behind you, a woman calls to her daughter. Someone else starts grinding grain. And a rooster, whose job is apparently eternal, announces the morning, like it's breaking news. The day is beginning. The heat is coming. And you, newly arrived from your soft modern world, are about to discover what one ordinary day in ancient Egypt really feels like. But before we move, take one more moment. Let the air settle around you. Let the slow hum of life at the riverbank ground you. This is a place with no electricity, no engines, no screens. Time is slower. The world is heavier. Every action takes your hands, your breath, your patience. And somehow, that makes everything feel more real. Now stand. Brush the sand from your legs, though it won't help, and follow the faint trail of footprints back toward the village, because the sun isn't waiting for you, and neither is ancient Egypt. The walk back from the river is short, though it never feels that way when the sun climbs fast. Morning in ancient Egypt is like a gentle hand that slowly becomes a firm one, pressing just a little harder with every minute. You learn to move before that happens. As you step onto the hardened earth between huts, the first real sound of the day reaches you, the rhythmic scrape, scrape, scrape of a woman grinding grain. It's steady, patient, almost meditative. Her hands move in practiced circles over the stone, and a soft cloud of flour rises around her like a pale halo. She nods at you without pausing. People here don't waste morning words. Nearby, a man is tying bundles of papyrus stalks. His fingers work fast and sure, looping the fibers, twisting them tight. The bundle is destined for boat making or sandals or maybe even a scribe's brush. Papyrus is the skeleton of Egyptian life. Boats, paper, mats, rope, baskets. It's everywhere. So familiar that no one thinks twice about it, except you with your modern eyes, noticing how much work goes into every simple thing. A little girl runs past you chasing a chicken with the determination of a pharaoh planning a pyramid. Her hair is tied with a clay bead, her tunic dusted at the hem, her laughter bright like the morning star. Childhood, for all its time and distance, still sounds the same. You follow the narrow path between huts, each one made of sun-dried bricks, the color of warm clay. The walls are rough and imperfect, but there's a charm to them, a stubbornness that says, I've stood in sandstorms you can't even imagine. The roofs are flat, woven from wood and reed, and a few of them already host sleeping cats that clearly believe they own the Nile. That's when the smell reaches you, fresh bread. Slightly sour, warm, earthy. It floats from a small clay oven where another woman works, pulling out round loaves with careful hands. Even from here, the heat radiates outward like a sigh. She glances at you, amused, maybe guessing that you're not used to ovens that glow like miniature suns. A boy beside her dips a jug into a pot and lifts it to his lips. You hear him gulp the water, and for a moment you think of modern taps and filters and refrigerators, and how none of that exists here. Most families rely on the Nile flood to renew the soil, the sun to purify jars, and luck to keep illness away. It's simple, but never effortless. As you walk deeper into the village, the sounds begin to layer. Voices, tools, animals, sandals brushing dust, and beneath it all, that constant hush of the river. Ancient Egypt doesn't wake in silence. It rises in a gentle crescendo, as if the whole land has been doing this for thousands of years and will keep doing it long after you and I slip out of the dream. Then you hear the older men at the edge of the village. They sit beneath a simple shade structure, 4 posts, a tattered piece of woven reed draped across the top. Their faces have the kind of wrinkles carved by sun and wind, not time alone. They talk about the water level, about a fisherman who caught nothing yesterday, about how the barley looks promising this season. Every conversation here is rooted in survival, in crops, in floods, in heat, in the quiet agreements people make with the land. One of the men nods toward you. There's no suspicion in the gesture, just acknowledgement. You're a stranger, but not a danger. In a world this open, where you can see the horizon in almost every direction. Mystery is rare. Everyone knows everyone, and everyone belongs to someone's story. A faint breeze stirs, carrying the smell of cattle and the sweet, dusty scent of date palms. A woman passes with a basket balanced effortlessly on her head. She walks like someone who has done this since childhood. Spine straight, step soft, gaze forward. The basket holds onions, a few figs, and a tiny clay jar sealed with wax. Perhaps oil, perhaps something more precious. You fall into the rhythm of the morning without even noticing. Step after step, observation after observation, your mind begins to slow the way days do here. No rush, no deadlines. The sun dictates everything, and the sun doesn't care about schedules. Another child approaches, barefoot, curious, holding a small amulet shaped like the Eye of Horus. He stares at you unabashedly. You're different. Your clothes, your walk, your silence. He doesn't ask questions. Children in ancient Egypt rarely address adults first, but his eyes ask enough. Protectors, gods, spirits. His world is full of them. Maybe he thinks you're one. You offer him a tiny smile. He returns it with cautious pride and scampers off, amulet bouncing against his chest. The village opens into a wider path leading toward the fields. The sunlight sharpens there, shimmering over the green strip of crops that borders the river like an embroidered hymn. Wheat, barley, flax, life's entire recipe, written in rows, and just beyond the fields, rising in the distance like stone markers between heaven and earth, you glimpse the silhouettes of tombs. Not grand pyramids, not today, not here. These are smaller, local, but no less sacred. Every family has someone buried there. Every morning begins with the knowledge that eternity is not an idea, it's a neighbor. You breathe in the air, the scent, the heat, the slow pulse of work beginning. You're no longer a visitor. You're part of the morning now. Shall we keep walking? There's much more to this day, and ancient Egypt is only beginning to show you who she is. The path toward the fields feels like the true spine of the village. Everyone passes this way sooner or later. Leaving footprints so familiar, they've begun to soften the earth into a shallow groove, an ancient reminder that nothing here is ever done alone. Life moves in shared rhythms. Work is a communal heartbeat. As you walk, the sun climbs a little higher, warm enough now that you feel it even through the thin linen of your tunic. It's not harsh, not yet. More like a gentle insistence. I'm here. Keep going. Don't dawdle. And so you don't. A pair of oxen trudge along the path beside you, led by a farmer who looks older than he probably is. The sun has a way of etching extra years onto faces like his. He nods a greeting. You see the faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth when he realizes you're still blinking at the brightness of the day. You're not from here, and he knows it, but you're polite enough to nod back, which means you understand at least one important thing. Ancient Egypt runs on respect, the same way the Nile runs on its seasonal flood. At the edge of the fields, life changes. The air smells greener, carrying hints of wet soil, grass, and the faint sweetness of flowering flax. The land here is everything: home, wealth, survival. Without it, there is no bread, no beer, no rope, no linen, no peace. You can almost feel the gratitude rising from the people working it. Men and women bend over in rows, pulling weeds, checking sprouts, tightening irrigation dikes with quick, practiced movements. They work quietly, each movement purposeful. No one wastes time here, or water. The Nile is generous, but not endlessly so, and every drop must be guided like a child learning to walk. A man waves you closer. He lifts a handful of soil, letting it crumble between his fingers. It's dark, rich, almost velvety, gifted by the last flood. He nods approvingly. This is good land, land that feeds, land that listens when humans plead. Then he rises, wipes his hands on his kilt, and points toward a set of channels carved between the crop rows. You watch water glide through them in thin silver ribbons, shimmering in the sun. Each ribbon is carefully managed, blocked with mud here, opened with a stick there. It looks simple, but it's a system thousands of years old, perfected long before the first stone of the Great Pyramid was ever laid. Nearby, a young woman works with a sickle-shaped tool trimming papyrus. She ties the stalks into bundles, her movement steady and confident. Her arms are strong from years of this work, and when she catches you looking, she lifts an eyebrow with a soft, amused challenge, as if she's silently asking, "Think you could do this all day?" You smile. She snorts. Challenge won. Further down the field, two boys are chasing each other barefoot across the embankment. One trips, lands in the mud, and immediately begins laughing. His friend collapses beside him, and for a moment, the work around them softens. A couple of farmers watch with half-hidden smiles. Children are the only ones who can interrupt labor without angering anyone. Their joy is a reminder of the rightness of the land, of the fact that life continues even in a world ruled by harsh heat and uncertain floods. But not everything is peaceful. A flock of birds gathers at the far end of the field, bold and hungry, and you watch as a man claps two blocks of wood together, creating a sharp crack that sends the birds scattering. The sound echoes across the fields. Another farmer does the same, then another. You realize they have to do this constantly. Wheat is precious. Barley is precious. Losing even a handful to birds is a sting no one wants. You turn your eyes toward the horizon, where the land rises gently into sandy slopes leading toward the desert. And there, at the border between green life and yellow emptiness, you see them, tombs. The day's work happens under their watch, as though every ancestor in the region sits quietly in the afterlife, keeping an eye on the living. This is Egypt, the present and the eternal sharing the same fields. A soft voice draws your attention back to the crops. A woman offers you a fig from a small basket. It's warm from the sun, its skin slightly wrinkled. You take it, bite, and the sweetness is almost startling, like eating sunlight wrapped in fruit. She laughs at your expression. Then she gestured toward the sky, reminding you without words that figs ripen best when the sun is merciless. You nod and thank her. She returns to her work, and you chew slowly, savoring the taste and the moment. Standing there, you feel something odd, almost like a gentle tug in your chest. It's the rhythm of the day pulling you forward. A quiet reminder that morning is slipping into midday, and the heat will soon be something more than a suggestion. A donkey brays somewhere behind you. A child calls out. A man wipes his brow, and the Nile continues whispering softly in the distance. You realize that in a world without clocks, without screens, without alarms, the day still knows how to move. It carries you along in its current. Not rushed, not slow, just steady, like a long breath that lasts from sunrise to sunset. There is more to see. The workshops, the markets, the temples, the hidden corners of everyday life, and maybe, just maybe, a little of the truth beneath the gold masks. Ready to keep walking? By the time you turn back toward the village, the sun has decided to stop being gentle. It hangs heavier now, gathering strength, turning every surface into a warm stone and every shadow into a small blessing. You start walking along the narrow path again, and the distant hum of daily life grows louder with each step. This is the hour when the village shifts from soft morning slowness into a more focused energy. People aren't rushing. No one rushes in ancient Egypt unless something is on fire or someone important is coming. But there's a purpose in the air, a subtle tightening, like the land itself is bracing for the heat. The first workshop you pass belongs to a potter. He sits cross-legged on a woven mat under a reed awning, shaping a lump of clay on a slow-turning wheel powered by his own foot. The wheel hums quietly, a soft, steady thrum that blends into the dust around him. His hands are coated in beige clay, fingers moving with such gentle precision that it feels like watching someone coax a secret into existence. He nods to you, then dips his hands into a bowl of water. The clay shines, darkens, softens. The vessel begins to take shape, rounded base, slimming waist, flaring lip. Each touch transforms it, and you can't help but feel a little wonder at how something so ordinary becomes something so enduring. Some pots from days like this will survive thousands of years, long after names and stories fade. Next to him, a younger man kneads fresh clay, his movements rougher, more impatient. He glances at the elder craftsman, clearly hoping to measure up. The elder pretends not to notice, though his eyes soften with quiet amusement. Skill takes time. Egypt understands time better than anywhere else. A little further down, the blacksmith's workspace hums with a different kind of rhythm, not metallic clangs. You won't find iron everywhere yet, but the sound of bronze tools being sharpened, reshaped, repaired. Bronze has a glow to it, a warm, honeyed sheen that catches the sun and throws it back in tiny sparks. A man works with a small hammer, tapping gently as he fits a blade into a wooden handle. Each strike sounds like a heartbeat. A woman steps into the workshop carrying two dull blades wrapped in a cloth. She hands them to the smith with the calm patience of someone who has done this many times before. He studies the tools, shakes his head slightly, and gestures for her to return later. She nods and leaves without a word. Life here doesn't require long conversations to function. The smell in the air shifts again, smoke now, and a hint of resin. You turn the corner and find yourself near a place where reed baskets are being sealed with oil and heated briefly over coals. The scent is sharp, earthy, somehow comforting. A woman with long braids wipes her forehead with the back of her hand, smearing a small streak of soot across her skin. She doesn't seem to mind. Beyond that workshop, you hear something softer, low voices, rhythmic chants drifting through a narrow street shaded by tall mud brick walls. The sound draws you toward it like a thread. It's a small household shrine. Two women stand before a niche carved into the wall where a tiny clay statue rests, a figure of Hathor, goddess of joy, motherhood, music, and all the gentle things that make life livable. The statue is simple, its paint slightly faded, but the faces of the women are lit with sincere devotion. One of them pours a small libation of beer into a shallow bowl. The other places a few lotus petals before the statue. The scent of the lotus rises warm and faintly sweet. mixing with the dry desert air in a way that makes the moment feel suspended, delicate, almost fragile. They murmur thanks, not dramatic prayers, not desperate pleas, just a quiet recognition. Thank you for the bread we ate. Thank you for the water that rose. Please keep the heat kind today. This is not temple worship with grand pillars and chanting priests. This is private reverence, woven into daily routine like thread in linen. A reminder that life in ancient Egypt is never really separate from the divine. Every action is a small offering. You step back respectfully, not wanting to intrude, and continue walking. A group of children sprints past you again, carrying playthings made of sticks and discarded pottery shards. Their laughter ricochets between the walls, bright and unrestrained, startling a stray cat perched on a basket. The cat looks deeply offended, as cats have looked since the dawn of time, before leaping onto a windowsill and grooming itself with dramatic indignation. As you pass, the breeze shifts again, carrying new scents: bacon bread, drying fish, warm dust, crushed herbs. Life here is a blend of simplicity and sensory fullness. Nothing hides. Everything smells like something. Everything feels like something. You pause as you reach the village center, a slightly wider space between the huts, marked by a few shade canopies and a low stone bench. People gather here for conversation, trade, or simply to step out of the glare for a moment. The heat is rising fast now. Conversations grow shorter, movements more economical, and yet no one seems rushed. This is a culture that has mastered patience. Everything has its time, everything has its place, including you. As you stand there, watching the village breathe under the thickening sun, you begin to feel something unexpected, a quiet belonging, a sense of slipping into the gentle rhythm that has guided millions before you. The day isn't finished with you yet. There are temples to pass, markets to wander, and stories woven into the afternoon heat that haven't yet revealed themselves. But for now, inhale slowly. Let the scent of bread and dust and sun-warmed stone anchor you to this moment. By midday, the village is humming like a quiet hive, not loud, never loud, but full of footsteps, soft voices, the buzz of insects, the murmur of a world where survival depends on steady hands and predictable rhythms. As you walk toward the market area, the stories of people begin collecting around you like drifting grains of sand. The market is not a grand place. There are no marble columns or echoing halls. Instead, it unwinds along a narrow street shaded by patched awnings made of woven reeds. The shadows they cast ripple gently in the heat, trembling like mirages. The air is thick with warmth, but not unbearable, not yet. You can still breathe comfortably, though each inhale feels a little heavier, as if the day itself is settling on your shoulders. The first stall you pass belongs to a spice seller. He sits on a low stool surrounded by baskets filled with crushed herbs, seeds, and powders the color of sunsets. Coriander, cumin, fenugreek, sesame, dill. The scents drift together in a warm wave that almost makes you dizzy. He lifts a small pinch of something golden and fragrant, offers it between two dusty fingers, and waits. You lean forward to smell it, sweet, a little sharp, almost honey-like. He nods, satisfied. Good nose, good manners. Next to him sits a woman selling onions and leeks, staples of the ancient diet. She works with a relaxed efficiency, wrapping vegetables in woven palm leaves, tying them with strips of reed. She doesn't call out or boast about her goods. There's no need. People know her. They know her produce. Trust here is built slowly like everything else. Farther along, a man sells fish freshly caught from the river. Some still glisten faintly, their scales catching little shards of sunlight. The smell is strong, but not unpleasant, sharp, vital like the river itself. A cat, perhaps the same offended creature from earlier, circles hopefully around the stall, tail twitching with unearned confidence. The fish seller pretends not to see it. A group of women cluster around a basket filled with blue and white beads, faience jewelry. They sift through the pieces, the beads clicking softly against one another. The colors are bright, vivid, almost startling against the dusty palette of the market. You pick one up, its surface smooth, cool despite the heat. It feels like something made to hold the shape of a prayer. A little girl sitting beside the bead seller watches you with wide, curious eyes. Her hair is tied in a small braid on one side, the rest falling loosely around her shoulders. She clutches a clay doll with painted eyes and a chipped smile. When she sees you looking, she lifts the doll a bit, as if to introduce you. You nod solemnly, and she beams as though she's just been appointed ambassador of the doll kingdom. Beyond the stalls, two men negotiate over a goat. The goat, it must be said, looks completely unimpressed by the entire situation. It chews lazily on a piece of straw, while the men gesture passionately, each claiming the other is trying to cheat him by a handful of barley, a length of rope, a small cloth pouch. The argument is not heated, just animated, the way men everywhere have bargained since the first marketplace existed. Nearby, a scribe sits behind a small wooden table, offering his services to anyone who needs a letter written, a record kept, or a transaction witnessed. His reed pen rests in a clay ink pot, and a strip of papyrus lies ready for the next customer. He has the slightly smug expression of someone who can read and knows that people need him. But there's also warmth in his posture, a kind of quiet pride. Words here have power. You pause beside a stall selling small amulets, eyes of Horus, scarabs, tiny figures of Bes, Hathor, and Taweret. Each one carved from clay, wood, or soft stone. A woman selects a scarab, holding it gently between her hands, whispering something you don't quite catch. Maybe a hope, maybe a plea, maybe gratitude. The market breathes around you, slow, warm, alive. Every stall, every gesture, every quiet exchange is woven into a tapestry that has existed for thousands of years and will continue long after this particular morning is forgotten. But what strikes you most is the simplicity, not of the objects, but of the connections. People greet one another by name. They touch hands. They laugh softly. They trade not only goods, but bits of stories, tiny fragments of their lives. You walk a little further until you reach a stall shaded with thick palm leaves. Here, a woman sells jars of honey. The jars glisten golden in the sun, little globes of trapped light. Honey was precious in ancient Egypt, medicine, food, offering. You watch as she lifts a jar toward the sun, examining the clarity. The honey glows like amber. She smiles and places it gently back. You're struck by how different this world is, yet how familiar it feels. No rush, no screens, no noise, just living, working, breathing, the slow pulse of a society that understands the value of a moment because time here is measured in seasons, floods, harvests, not minutes. A man passing by recognizes you from the river earlier. He nods. You return the gesture. Suddenly, you don't feel like a stranger. You feel like someone who belongs, if only for this hour. The breeze shifts again, stirring dust into a soft swirl. The shadows flicker across the street, and as the market continues humming, you feel the day moving forward, carrying you gently toward its warm heart. There's more to see, more to understand, more of ancient Egypt to walk through before the sun begins its long descent. Leaving the market feels a little like stepping out of a warm conversation. The air behind you still buzzes with soft barter and laughter, but ahead of you, the village quiets. Fewer voices, longer shadows. Even the breeze seems to shift, brushing you with the faint coolness drifting in from shaded walls. You follow a narrow lane that leads toward the outskirts of the settlement, toward something larger, older, heavier in presence. You can feel it before you see it. Ancient Egypt didn't place temples casually. They were the anchors of the world, the places where heaven touched the dust. The mud brick homes give way to a broad, empty space where the ground is swept clean. Children don't play here. Animals don't wander here. Even adults tread softly. You step into the quiet, and the sudden stillness feels almost like stepping indoors, though you're fully exposed to the sky. Then the temple appears. Its walls rise from the earth as if the desert itself decided to stand upright. Smooth stone glowing under the sun, carved with faded hieroglyphs. They're not the crisp, elaborate carvings of royal monuments, but simpler, humbler. Still, they hold weight. You feel it. Every symbol, every line, every tiny bird and reed and seated figure carries centuries of whispered prayers. A pair of tall wooden doors stands open, though only halfway, just wide enough for people to slip through one at a time, as if reminding them to adjust their pace before entering. To remember who waits inside. A woman with a woven basket approaches the entrance ahead of you. She pauses, touches her forehead gently with 2 fingers, then steps inside with the kind of respectful silence only a lifetime of ritual can teach. You wait a moment, letting her pass, letting the air settle again. When you enter, the temperature changes instantly. The shade inside wraps around you like cool cloth placed on overheated skin. The scents shift too. Resin, crushed herbs, faint smoke, old stone breathing after centuries of darkness and incense. Light filters in through tiny openings in the ceiling, falling in narrow golden beams that look almost solid. Dust floats lazily through them, drifting like suspended snowflakes. At first, the temple seems small, intimate, but the deeper you walk, the more it unfolds like a secret. Side niches, thick columns, carved beams, painted plaster faded by time, but still holding hints of red, blue, green. Everything whispers. A priest moves silently across one of the chambers. His linen garments are clean, precise, almost impossibly white in the dimness. His head is shaved smooth, his steps deliberate. You watch as he places a tiny clay offering bowl onto a low stone table. Inside the bowl is something that glints. Oil, maybe? Honey, perhaps. He lights a small wick. The flame flutters, then steadies. He doesn't look at you directly, but he acknowledges you with a slight tilt of his head. This is as much permission as anyone gets. Another priest appears from a side room carrying a bundle of fresh herbs, mint, lotus petals, and a bit of resin bound with papyrus twine. He crushes the bundle gently in his hands, releasing a new wave of scent that rolls through the chamber in warm, fragrant curls. You inhale. The air feels heavier now, thicker, almost sweet. The soundscape inside is minimal. Soft footsteps, the faint crackle of burning oil, the distant coo of pigeons nesting in the roof beams. Every noise feels amplified and softened at the same time, as if the walls are listening. In the inner sanctuary, a smaller, darker space, you see a statue, not towering, not gilded, not garlanded with jewels. This is not a royal temple. This is a village shrine. The statue is carved from dark wood, worn smooth by centuries of offerings. Its face is serene. Its posture forward-facing, steady, eternal. The woman with the basket kneels before it, placing a small loaf of bread wrapped in a scrap of linen. She whispers something, though the words dissolve before they reach you. Her shoulders loosen as she speaks. When she rises, her face is calmer. She nods once toward the statue, then slips past you quietly, leaving the scent of baked bread behind. You notice a few more offerings scattered around the statue. A single lotus bloom, wilted but still fragrant. A clay bead, a small carved amulet, a tiny jar sealed with wax, a handful of barley grains. No offering is too small. That is the rule here. A priest approaches you carrying a small clay bowl. He pauses, watching you with thoughtful eyes, then extends the bowl gently. You peer inside. Water, simple, clear, still cool from the shade. He raises his hand, mimicking a gesture, splashing the water lightly onto your fingertips. It's not a ritual for you, it's a permission, a welcome, a small acknowledgement that even strangers carry their own quiet burdens, and cleansing is offered to all. You mimic the gesture. The water is cool, soothing. The priest nods once, satisfied, then returns to his tasks without another word. This is a place built not for spectacle, but for balance, for small rituals that anchor the heart, for the belief that life must be guided, steadied, softened, just as the Nile guides and steadies the land. You step back into the sunlight slowly, blinking at the sudden brightness. The temple behind you stands silent, watching, its doors half open like an unspoken promise. The heat has grown sharper now, shadows shorter, the air heavier. Soon, the village will settle into its quietest hours, the slow, breath-held stillness of early afternoon. But before that stillness arrives, there is one more place to visit, a place where Egypt's most ordinary people leave behind their most extraordinary mark, the workshops of the scribes. The heat outside the temple feels different now, not aggressive, not painful, just present, like a hand pressed lightly against your back, a reminder to move with intention, to seek shade when you can, to respect the sun's authority. You follow a narrow path that winds between mud brick walls, each one radiating warmth like the skin of a sunbathing lizard. The air here carries a faint scent, papyrus, reed pulp, crushed pigment. You're close. The scribe's workshop sits slightly apart from the busier part of the village, not because scribes are aloof, but because writing requires something rare in ancient Egypt: silence, or at least a softer kind of noise. Dust muffles the path. Straw mats soften every footstep. Even the breeze seems to hush as you approach. Inside, the room is half-shaded, lit by slivers of sunlight slipping through thin slats in the ceiling. Two men sit cross-legged on woven mats, each hunched over a narrow wooden board. Their reed pens glide slowly, dipping into small clay wells of ink, black made from soot, red made from ochre. The smell is surprisingly soft, earthy, almost comforting. One scribe, the older of the two, has a face lined with tiny grooves from squinting against sunlight all his life. His hands are steady, his posture perfect. He writes with the quiet assurance of someone who knows his work will outlive him. Maybe by decades, maybe by centuries. The younger scribe glances at you curiously, but only for a moment. His hand trembles slightly as he forms a precise hieroglyph. He's still learning, still earning the right to be confident. Every stroke matters, every symbol carries weight. One misplaced line can turn offering into offense, river into mouth, king into child. Writing is both a craft and a responsibility. A stack of dried papyrus sheets rests beside them. You reach out to touch one. The surface is slightly rough, faintly ridged, like the veins of a leaf. It's not smooth like modern paper. It has personality. It has texture. It has the quiet resistance of something handmade. The older scribe carefully sets down his pen and dips a small reed into the ink, stirring it slowly. The movement is almost hypnotic. When he lifts it again, he taps the excess ink against the edge of the pot, producing a soft tick that echoes lightly through the room. He gestures toward a small slab of stone where a fresh sheet of papyrus is held flat with a pair of polished pebbles. He says something, a gentle explanation, not expecting you to fully understand. But you do. He is showing you the place where words are born. You watch as he paints a single hieroglyph, a bird, its lines fluid, its posture elegant. There's something grounding about the simplicity of it. Writing in this room feels less like communication and more like planting seeds. Each symbol is a root, each phrase a path, each document a way to keep life from dissolving into sand. A slight breeze rustles the edge of a papyrus sheet. The younger scribe quickly places his hand on it to keep it steady. He looks embarrassed for reacting so fast. The older scribe smiles faintly but approvingly. Even papyrus must be protected. Knowledge is fragile in this world. On the far wall, a child sits with a small board in his lap, copying basic hieroglyphs in clumsy strokes. The bird looks more like a hunched duck. The water sign looks like a crooked staircase. But his determination is fierce. He chews the inside of his cheek as he works, completely absorbed. One day, he may sit where the older scribe sits now. One day, his hands may write the records that define entire seasons. You glance around the workshop and notice something else. Small details, quietly revealing a jar of crushed malachite for green pigment, a pot of dried resin used for glue, a tiny wooden palette stained with layers of ink, a rolled papyrus scroll tied with reed fiber, a half-finished letter waiting to be delivered to a farmer in another village. The scribes don't just write stories or sacred texts. They write lives into permanence, birth lists, harvest tallies, marriage agreements, tax records, debts, prayers. Without them, memory evaporates. Without them, the past is just dust. The older scribe finally speaks to you, a slow, gentle sentence. His voice sounds like parchment, soft, dry, thin-edged. He points at your hands, then at the papyrus. He wants you to try. You hesitate. He patiently repeats the gesture. So you sit. Lift the reed pen. Dip it into black ink. The texture surprises you. Thicker than modern ink, more deliberate. When you touch the pen to the papyrus, the surface resists for a heartbeat before yielding. You draw a single line. It wavers slightly. The younger scribe hides a smile. You try again. This time it's steadier, respectable even. The older scribe nods, satisfied. Not because the stroke is perfect, but because you respected the moment. You tried. And in ancient Egypt, trying is sacred. When you hand the pen back, the scribe places it carefully beside his ink pot, as though the reed has witnessed something meaningful. You rise from the mat, your knees tingling from sitting cross-legged. The workshop feels warmer now, fuller, like you've been invited into a circle that few outsiders step into. As you walk back toward the doorway, the younger scribe gives you a tiny, almost shy nod, a gesture that says, "You did well enough. Come back anytime." Outside, the sun has thickened the air again. The village is quieter now, slipping into its slow midday hush. Even the animals seek shade. Even the Nile seems to lower its voice. It's time for the hottest hours of the day, and you're about to witness how ancient Egypt survives them. By the time you leave the scribe's workshop, the light outside has taken on a different texture, denser, brighter, almost shimmering at the edges. The sun is no longer simply present, it rules. And in ancient Egypt, when the sun reaches its highest command, the entire world learns a single lesson: stillness is survival. You step into the narrow street, and immediately the heat wraps around you like a thick cloth. It presses gently at first, then insistently, nudging you toward shade. Every surface glows faintly. Mud brick walls, woven reed roofs, even the dust itself gleams like powdered gold. People move differently now, slower, shorter steps, quieter breaths. A woman carrying a jar of water walks with her scarf pulled over her head, her eyes narrowed against the glare. A pair of children, energetic just an hour ago, now sit beneath a date palm, half-lidded, tracing shapes in the dust with sticks. Even the chickens walk with more purpose, darting into shade whenever possible. You follow the curve of the village until you reach a slightly larger home, still modest, but clearly belonging to a family with enough means to keep it cool. The doorway is shaded with a thick woven mat, and the floor inside is sprinkled with clean sand to soften the glare. Many Egyptians retreat indoors during this hour. Bread is eaten, water is shared, little tasks are done quietly, but above all, people rest. Not sleep exactly, more of a calm pause, a way to let the sun do its fiercest work without challenging it. You step inside, the air is cooler, calmer, dimmer. Your eyes adjust slowly. A woman sits near a low table grinding herbs with a stone pestle. Her movements are steady, but unhurried. She mixes the crushed leaves with oil, maybe for soothing burns, maybe for scenting the home, maybe for a quiet ritual later. In Egypt, herbs have infinite purposes. A man lies on a mat near the wall, eyes closed, one arm resting behind his head. He's not fully asleep. One ear stays open, listening for footsteps, for voices, for anything requiring attention. But his body obeys the heat. This is the closest thing to a break that ancient life allows. Against the far wall hangs a string of clay beads, each disc baked hard by the sun. They clink gently as a slight breeze enters through a small window slit. It's not much, but in this heat, even a whisper of air feels like a blessing. You sit on a mat. The sand beneath it is cool, a small miracle considering the blazing world outside. You run your fingers through it. It's fine, soft, clean. Egyptians sometimes use sand indoors the way we use carpets, to insulate, to soften, to control temperature. An older woman enters, carrying a shallow bowl of figs. She offers you one. You accept. The fruit is warm but juicy, sweet in a way that makes your eyelids grow heavier. Figs here taste like something the sun cooked kindly. A low murmur of conversation begins, soft, almost lazy. The topics are simple: whether the flood will come on time this year, whether a neighbor's cow may calf soon, whether the village priest looked more tired than usual. People here talk with the rhythm of the heat, slow even, unhurried. After a while, the home grows quieter. The herbs stop grinding. The conversation fades. You hear distant sounds outside, a donkey shifting its weight, a pottery jar settling, the rustle of palm fronds. It's the hottest hour. Everything slows, everything hushes. Even you feel the weight of it. Not discomfort, just heaviness. As if the world has pressed the pause button. Someone places a small clay bowl of water beside you. You dip your fingers in. The water feels cool, drawing a soft sigh from you. Then you touch your forehead, just as the villagers did. A tiny ritual, a moment of relief. The older woman notices. She smiles approvingly. Outside, the light has turned white hot. The edges of doorways glow like embers. The village breathes in long, slow waves, as if the entire community is sharing a single, steady heartbeat. You lean back on your hands, letting your shoulders loosen. You're thousands of years away from your own time, but somehow the stillness feels familiar. There's something deeply human about pausing in the heat, about letting the day shape your rhythm instead of forcing your rhythm onto the day. And as your breathing slows to match the quiet around you, you begin to understand why people here live so long in harmony with the desert. They listen to it. The sun owns the afternoon, but the people own the stillness. Soon the heat will soften. Soon the village will wake again. And when it does, you'll step into a new, humming chapter of the day, a chapter filled with craft, family, animals, evening tasks, and the early stars stretching awake over the Nile. But for this moment, breathe, let yourself rest, because the day in ancient Egypt is far from over. The stillness holds for a long while, longer than you expect. It settles into your bones like a warm stone, quieting your thoughts until even your heartbeat seems to tread softly. Ancient Egypt understands something modern life often forgets. There is a rhythm to surviving the day, and some hours require surrender rather than effort. Eventually, though, a subtle shift begins. Not a sound, not a breeze, a feeling. The sun, still fierce, loses its sharpest edge. The light filtering through the small window slit turns more golden than white. A child stirs from his half-nap, stretching with a soft whine. Someone outside calls a goat's name. A clay pot clinks. The older woman rises and adjusts the mat covering the door, letting in a sliver of fresh, slightly cooler air. The village is waking again. You step outside, and the heat, though still heavy, doesn't push as hard. Shadows lengthen just enough to offer relief. The sky deepens from pale gold to a stronger amber, promising an evening that will be gentler than the morning. People emerge from their homes in small waves, women carrying jars, men dusting sand from their clothes, children blinking sleepily, then running off as if their energy had been quietly recharging. Life resumes, but without the morning's urgency. This is a softer, slower phase of the day. A woman near you kneels beside a clay water jar, dipping a ladle to pour fresh liquid into a smaller vessel. She offers you some with a faint smile. The water tastes faintly of clay, cooled by the porous jar that slowly releases moisture and chills its contents. You almost sigh at how refreshing it is. Nearby, a pair of boys lead a donkey toward the fields. Its ears twitch with renewed purpose, as if it too knows that work suspended must now continue. They walk with that familiar Egyptian grace, barefoot, balanced, used to feeling the earth directly beneath them. You follow the path again, but everything looks different now, as if the village took a deep breath and exhaled into the afternoon. A man sharpens a blade outside his home, dragging it in slow arcs across a whetstone. The rhythmic sound, shh, 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 mingles with distant voices and the occasional bray of a donkey. It's a soft chorus that signals one thing: the productive hours have returned. Women gather near the well, lifting water with ropes and clay jars. Their laughter rises in gentle bursts, the kind that comes from shared routine, shared fatigue, shared life. One woman splashes another lightly, and the second lets out a mock, offended gasp before both descend into giggles. Farther along, a girl collects herbs from the edges of a garden patch: mint, chamomile, maybe a few sprigs of thyme. She crushes a leaf between her fingers, smells it, nods, and drops it into a small woven basket. In a world like this, everyone knows plants intimately. They heal, they flavor, they soothe, they protect. You see a man repairing a fishing net, his fingers flying deftly through loops of coarse fiber. Each knot ties his family's meal a little closer. The net drapes across his lap like a woven river, catching the late afternoon light. A few steps away, a mother braids her daughter's hair. The little girl sits patiently, legs swinging, while the mother's hands work quickly and lovingly. When the braid is done, the mother places a tiny clay bead at the end, a simple decoration, but one that carries pride. Girls in Egypt wear their hair like living jewelry. As you watch, you notice how the entire village has shifted into a kind of soft hum. Not busy, not frantic, just engaged. Reconnected. Everyone doing something small, necessary, meaningful. The first hint of evening wind slips through the village, warm, but carrying enough movement to lift loose strands of hair and rustle palm fronds. It smells faintly of clay, of earth cooling under the sun's retreat, and of the faint sweetness drifting from the direction of the river. You follow that scent almost without realizing. The Nile at this hour looks different too. Earlier, it sparkled like liquid glass. Now, it glows like poured bronze. Birds skim the surface in low arcs, sending ripples outward. A fisherman in a small reed boat paddles lazily toward the shore, his movements unhurried now that the harsh light has softened. A group of women rinse vegetables on the river's edge, chatting quietly as they work. Their reflections shimmer in the water, distorted by little curls of current. One of them glances up at you with a curious, warm expression. Strangers stand out in a village like this, but you're becoming less strange with each passing hour. Your presence is no longer a question mark. A boy bends to fill a jar, splashing his hands first. The cold water surprises him, and he laughs out loud, the sound skipping across the river's surface like a thrown pebble. You can't help but smile as the shadows stretch farther and the air cools by delicate degrees. You feel a softening inside yourself too, the kind that only comes after spending hours syncing your heartbeat to the rhythm of a place untouched by haste. And now that the village has fully awakened from its midday silence, it begins preparing for the most peaceful part of the day. Supper, stories, twilight, and a sky ancient Egyptians believed the gods painted by hand each night. The first breath of evening settles gently across the land, soft as linen and warm as a hand resting on your shoulder. It doesn't rush in. It glides, almost shyly, slipping between palm trunks and drifting over rooftops the way a whisper slips into a conversation. The Nile changes first. Its bronze glow deepens, becoming almost violet along the edges. Touched by the earliest bruises of twilight, the surface smooths, quieting as fishermen finish their routes and children wander home. A faint chorus of frogs begins somewhere upriver, timid at first, then more confident, like a hesitant choir warming up for the night's performance. You walk along the water's edge, your steps slower now. The heat no longer presses, it releases. What remains is a warm residue like breath on skin. You inhale, and the river gives you a scent that is both ancient and strangely comforting. Wet reeds, cooling mud, a hint of distant lotus. Women begin carrying baskets of vegetables and grain back toward the village. Their tunics sway with their steps, their bracelets chiming softly. They speak to each other in the language of the evening, quieter, rounder, full of the relief of a day nearly done. One of them passes you, and she nods, a simple greeting, but her eyes say something else. You made it through the heat with us. You belong to this hour now. You follow the path that curves back into the village. The transformation is subtle but beautiful. Torches have been lit near a few doorways, small flames flickering inside clay lamps. They glow like fireflies trapped in carved shells, pushing back the growing blue of dusk. Shadows stretch longer, thinner, dancing across walls and weaving between baskets. A man sits outside his home, repairing sandals, the leather soft from years of wear. He works with slow, steady movements, humming under his breath. A melody with no beginning or end, the kind of tune people hum when daylight has softened their edges. Nearby, a mother rinses her toddler in a small clay basin. The child splashes, squealing with delight as the water gleams gold in the lantern light. The mother laughs too, her voice full of tenderness that turns the simple moment into something sacred. The scent of cooking drifts through the air, lentils simmering, onions softening over coals, flatbread warming on a clay oven. Your stomach responds immediately, remembering it's part of this world too. You walk toward one of the communal cooking spots where several women tend to large clay pots. The glow of the coals paints their faces in warm amber tones. They stir, taste, adjust, stir again. It's not a chore, it's a ritual of nourishment, connection, care. A young man sits nearby grinding spices, the rhythmic scrape of the pestle blending into the evening's tapestry of sounds. He pauses when he sees you, offering a small heap of crushed cumin in his palm for you to smell. You lean closer. The aroma is deep, earthy, almost sweet. He smiles, pleased you appreciated it. Someone calls a child home. Another gathers dried laundry from a rooftop line. A third sweeps sand from her doorstep, the brush leaving soft, crescent-shaped patterns behind her. Life slows, but it doesn't stop. There is still work to finish, fetching water one last time, tying animals to posts, smoothing mats, closing shutters. Every movement is gentle, unhurried, touched by the serenity of the hour that Egyptians once believed belonged to a goddess, the lady of the cool evening. You find yourself drawn toward a small rooftop. A set of narrow steps leads upward, and instinct, or perhaps the pull of the sky, guides your feet. At the top, a family is already gathered. They sit on mats spread across the warm, flat surface, waiting for supper, waiting for stars. The oldest woman pats the mat beside her, inviting you to sit. You do. From up here, the village looks like a constellation of soft lights. Clay lamps flicker at doorways. Fires glow in cooking pits. The Nile glimmers faintly, reflecting the last streaks of orange along the horizon. Someone hands you a piece of warm flatbread. You tear it. The steam escapes. You taste it. It's soft, simple, delicious. Flour, water, heat, time. Nothing more. Nothing less. People talk quietly around you. A father telling his son about a stubborn donkey. A grandmother recounting a funny story about a neighbor's goat. Two sisters debating whether the flood will rise higher this year. No arguments, no loud voices, just shared life, woven softly. The sky deepens into a rich blue, almost velvety. A single star appears, sharp and bright. Then another and another, until the whole sky seems to unfold piece by piece, revealing constellations that ancient Egyptians saw not just as stars, but as maps, stories, promises, guides for the dead and comfort for the living. A quiet breeze brushes your face, cool now, carrying the faint scent of cooling stone and night-blooming flowers. You lie back on the mat, hands resting on your stomach, eyes drifting upward. And for a long, quiet moment, you simply breathe with ancient Egypt. The day has softened, the world has cooled, and night is beginning her slow, majestic entrance. Soon, you'll see how Egyptians end their day, how they cherish family, how they honor the gods, how they prepare their homes for the dark hours. But for now, rest here a little longer. The sky is telling its first stories. You stay on the rooftop as the last traces of sun slip beneath the horizon, leaving behind a soft glow that slowly fades into a deepening indigo. The warmth stored in the mud brick walls and flat roofs begins to rise, lifting into the air in slow waves that shimmer and disappear into the cooling night. Voices drift upward from the village, low, calm, peaceful. The day's harsh edges have been worn away, leaving only quiet murmurs and the tender closeness of people who survived another day of heat, work, and sunlight together. The family around you begins arranging simple dishes, bowls of lentils seasoned with garlic and cumin, slices of cucumbers and onions, fresh bread, and a small clay pot of date syrup that glows like amber under the lamplight. A girl brings up a jar of beer, thick, cloudy, mildly fermented. It isn't a drunkard's drink. It's nourishment, tradition, and hydration in one. The grandmother hands you a bowl without hesitation. There is no ceremony to it, just an unspoken understanding that anyone within the circle at supper time shares the meal. You accept it with a slight bow of your head. She nods back, approving. As you eat, you notice how the flavors of ancient Egypt are both simple and incredibly alive. Lentils rich with herbs, bread soft with a faint sourness, onions crisp and biting, the beer earthy, yeasty, strangely comforting. It tastes like survival, like continuity, like thousands of years distilled into a single mouthful. Conversations begin, soft and steady. A man tells his wife about a stubborn cow who refused to be tied this morning. Two sisters whisper about someone they saw at the well, someone handsome enough to make them giggle. The old grandmother recounts a story about her youth when the flood waters rose high enough to carry baskets down the street like tiny boats. Laughter ripples through the group, carried easily on the cooling breeze. Children curl against their parents already fighting sleep. A mother strokes her son's hair, tracing patterns into it with the ease of a gesture repeated hundreds of times. A father draws his daughter onto his knee, whispering a few words that make her eyes flutter closed. Egyptian nights are not just the absence of day. They are a time of connection, of warmth, of togetherness woven into the very fabric of survival. The lamplight burns steady, its flame dancing inside a clay bowl filled with oil. Shadows ripple gently, like the walls are breathing. From the street below comes the soft thumping of someone pounding grain. A late task, but sometimes work must stretch into night. A dog barks once, then quiets. A donkey snorts. Somewhere else, someone sings, a slow, lilting melody that drifts upward like incense smoke. You stand and walk to the edge of the roof. The village below glows softly. Small lamps, a few torches, silhouettes moving in the twilight. It feels like looking down at a miniature world built from warm clay and quiet hearts. Beyond the last huts, the desert stretches into darkness, vast and eternal. Its silence is different from the village's hush, colder, emptier, but not threatening, just watchful. The desert in Egypt is not an enemy, only a reminder that life is precious and must be tended. Above you, the sky unfurls fully, an endless tapestry of stars, bright as scattered grains of salt. The Milky Way arches across the heavens like the white path of a celestial river. Ancient Egyptians believed this was the sky goddess Nut. Her body stretched protectively across the world, swallowing the sun each night and birthing it each dawn. And standing here, you understand why. The stars feel close, gentle, alive. You return to the family's mat. The grandmother is lighting a second lamp. She dips a wick into oil, lifts it, and brings the flame close with steady hands. The new flame leaps to life, small but confident. There's a moment of reverence, not dramatic, not formal, just a quiet pause as the family watches the second lamp glow. Light is sacred here, night is sacred, balance is sacred. After supper, small evening rituals begin. A woman sprinkles water across the rooftop to cool the floor before sleep. A man brushes sand from the mats. Children are guided into soft blankets. A cat curls in a corner, tail tucked neatly over its nose. Nearby rooftops echo the same scene, families settling, preparing, softening into the night. The air now is truly cool. You inhale deeply and feel a freshness you forgot the desert could offer. It smells like clay touched by moonlight, like still water, like lavender growing somewhere unseen. As you watch the night fully claim the village, something changes inside you. A calmness, a slowing, a sense of being held gently by time rather than swept through it. This world moves differently than yours, and yet it welcomes you. The grandmother gently presses a folded cloth into your hands, a pillow of sorts, an invitation. She gestures to a place on the mat. On a rooftop under the stars, surrounded by warmth and quiet voices, you are being invited to sleep like an ancient Egyptian. And soon you will. But before sleep comes, there is one more moment the night wants to share with you. One final ritual of the day. Something soft, something tender, something you won't forget. Night has fully wrapped itself around the village now. Soft, cool, complete. The stars above glitter with a clarity you rarely see in the modern world, unblurred by electric haze or restless noise. Each one feels sharp enough to name, bright enough to guide a traveler across the desert. Even the moon hangs lower, fuller, as if it has come closer just to watch over the rooftops. People begin preparing for sleep in slow, familiar motions. There is no urgency here. Night is not the enemy. It is a soft companion, a gentle pause between the labors of yesterday and tomorrow. The grandmother rises first. She takes a small clay jar and removes its tiny stopper. A faint scent escapes, something floral, light, almost sweet. Infused oil, blended earlier from pressed herbs and lotus petals. Egyptians use such oils not only for grooming, but as part of their quiet nightly rituals. A way to cleanse the day from the skin, a way to invite peaceful dreams. She pours a little into her palms and rubs them together, warming the oil. Then she touches her temples, her forehead, her neck. Her movements are slow, deliberate, almost meditative. You watch as her face softens, the lines etched by sun and years smoothing under her gentle touch. Then she offers the jar to you. You hesitate, not out of doubt, but respect. She nods, encouraging. So you take a small amount, rub it softly between your hands, and touch your temples the way she did. The scent blooms faintly in the air. Lotus, mint. Something like cool earth after rain. It relaxes you instantly, loosening the last of the day's weight from your shoulders. Around you, the family performs their own small rituals. A mother wipes her children's foreheads with a damp cloth. A father checks the clay lamps, adjusting the wick so the flame burns low. A teenage girl ties her hair in a loose braid so the wind won't tangle it in the night. A boy whistles softly to call the family's cat, coaxing it closer to curl at their feet. There is no chaos, no complaining, no rushing, just the quiet choreography of a world that has performed these movements for thousands of years. When everyone has settled, the grandmother steps to the edge of the rooftop and looks up at the sky. You join her. She raises her hands, not high, not dramatically, but gently, palms facing upward. A gesture of offering, gratitude, and acknowledgement. Egyptians spoke often to the gods, but not always in words. Sometimes the act was enough. She murmurs a short prayer, soft, soothing, barely louder than the breath of the night wind. You don't understand the words, but the meaning reaches you anyway. Thank you for the day. Thank you for the food. Thank you for the river. Let tomorrow come with peace. She lowers her hands, exhales slowly, and smiles. The family begins lying down on their woven mats. Children first, curling into comfortable positions with the ease of those who trust their world completely. A gentle breeze passes over their faces, lifting stray hairs. Someone hums a lullaby, no words, just melody. The kind of tune designed to match the slow beating of a human heart. You lie down too. The mat beneath you is firm but comforting, warmed from the day, cooled by the night air. Your borrowed pillow, a folded cloth, smells faintly of clay and herbs. The sky above is endless. And from your place on the rooftop, you notice things you never noticed before. How the stars seem to pulse gently like living things. How the breeze quiets each time it drifts over sleeping children. How the lamps below glow like grounded constellations. How the Nile whispers rather than flows, humming your body toward rest. Beside you, the grandmother sits a moment longer, watching for any lingering wakefulness. When she sees your eyes soften, she lays her hand lightly on your arm, just once, a gesture of reassurance usually reserved for family. Then she lies down too. The night grows deeper. The frogs by the river sing. A donkey brays once, then falls silent. Crickets begin their steady rhythm. A clay lamp flickers, then steadies again. You breathe slowly, in, out, in, out. You're almost asleep when you notice something Egyptians cherished deeply. The constellations above you are not just stars, their stories. You see a long curve of light. Ancient people once imagined this as the celestial Nile, a cluster beside it, figures sailing in eternal boats. Farther right, an ark Egyptians believed was the goddess Nut, bending over the world to shelter it. And in that moment, under that sky, your body sinks into a peace older than pyramids. You understand why Egyptians loved the night. It wasn't the darkness, it wasn't the coolness, it was this, the feeling that the universe was personal, close, listening. You close your eyes. One more breath, then another. The world softens into a blur of warm clay and gentle stars, but the night in ancient Egypt holds one final secret, one that reveals itself not in dream, but just before dawn. A moment where the world seems to pause between two breaths, and soon you'll wake into it. Sometime in the night, the rooftop cools fully. The heat stored in the mud brick slowly escapes upward, leaving the surface beneath you pleasantly cool, like a stone hidden in river shade. You shift in your sleep, but do not wake, not fully. Only enough to sense the breeze brushing across your face, carrying with it the scent of damp earth, night flowers, and distant water. The village is silent in a way that only ancient places can be. No engines, no electricity humming through wires, no sudden metallic clatter. Just a soft tapestry of natural sounds stretching across time. You drift lightly between sleep and awareness, as if your body knows it's meant to witness something rare. The deepest hour of the night, the moment ancient Egyptians believed the world lay in the protective arms of Nut, the sky goddess. Her body, they said, arched over the earth like a mother sheltering her children from the chaos beyond. You breathe, slow and even. The stars above continue their quiet shimmer. The moon glides silently toward the western horizon. Then, just before dawn, a moment happens. A moment Egyptians called the hush. It begins with the animals. The frogs go quiet first. The crickets fall still. Even the nocturnal birds tuck their wings and rest. The silence is not empty. It's soft, full, as if the entire world is holding a breath together. You wake gently, not suddenly. Your eyes open a little. The sky overhead is still dark, but a faint line of silver touches the edge of the horizon, a directionless, muted glow. Dawn is still far, but the idea of dawn is stirring. Around you, the family sleeps peacefully. A little girl curled against her mother, a boy lying on his stomach, one arm draped over the family cat. The grandmother with her arms folded neatly, her breathing calm and steady. No one dreams loudly, no one shifts too much. The stillness covers everyone like a shared blanket. You become aware of your own breath, soft, deep, sinking with the hush, and slowly your senses sharpen just enough to notice the details only revealed at this hour. The faint glimmer of dew forming on clay pots left near the doorway. The way the stars seem to dim in tiny increments, one by one retiring from the sky. The scent of damp reeds carried from the Nile, heavier now, earthier. The quiet murmur of water creatures moving below the surface. Then, somewhere far beyond the fields, you hear the first sound of awakening. A single bird, a gentle chirp, not a call, not a melody, just an announcement. One other bird answers, another joins. Soon the hush transforms, but not abruptly, bit by bit, as if the world wakes in layers. The grandmother stirs, not fully wakened, but stretching her fingers, adjusting her shawl, tilting her face toward the horizon as though her body has known this moment for decades. She does not open her eyes. She simply breathes deeper, as if greeting the approaching light through instinct alone. Moments later, a donkey brays softly. A pot cracks gently as it cools. A child mumbles something in sleep. The sky lightens by degrees, shifting from dark blue to steel gray. You watch as the first slender veil of pink threads itself across the east, so pale it could almost be imagined, and suddenly you understand something profound about ancient Egyptian life. Dawn isn't just the start of the day, it's a renewal, a guarantee, a promise kept by the universe, because every night the sun god Ra journeys through the underworld fighting chaos. And every dawn, the entire world holds its breath to see if he rises again. This is the moment when the ancient Egyptians believed the cosmic battle ends, when order triumphs, when the world is safe for one more day. The grandmother finally opens her eyes. She sits up slowly, joints clicking softly. She looks at the horizon with reverence, not worship, but gratitude. She whispers a small morning blessing, her voice cracked with sleep, her words flowing like warm honey. The sun rises, we rise. The entire village begins to stir. A dog shakes its fur. A rooster calls loudly, proudly, claiming responsibility for waking the world. A woman lifts a clay jar and stretches her back. A man rubs his hands together to warm them. A child yawns so wide it seems his face might split. You feel the coolness of the morning air passing over your arms, fresh and clean, the kind of crispness only achieved after a long desert night. The stars retreat fully now, slipping away behind the brightening veil of early light. Someone nearby begins lighting a morning fire. The faint crackle of kindling reaches your ears. Tiny sparks rise into the air, swirling softly before disappearing. And then, just as the world seems to hold its breath once more, the sun breaks over the horizon. Thin at first, like a thin thread of molten gold, then brighter, stronger, claiming the sky, beginning its long descent across Egypt once again. The grandmother smiles at you knowingly. You have witnessed something most people never truly see, the exact moment ancient Egypt feels the world begin again. Soon, the day will unfold. Breakfast, water fetching, work, life, joy, struggle, heat, laughter. But before the day fully starts, there is one more quiet ritual of early morning you will experience. A walk, a simple one, but one that ties the entire rhythm of Egyptian life together. The sun's first rays stretch over the land like thin, golden ribbons, weaving themselves across the rooftops, slipping between brick walls, glinting off pottery jars still cool from the night. Dawn in ancient Egypt doesn't burst, it unfurls, softly, carefully, as if the world wakes in layers. You stand brushing a fine dusting of sand from your clothes. The rooftop beneath your feet has begun to warm, but only just. The grandmother folds the sleeping mats with practiced motions, and the children, still blinking away the last threads of dreams, help her carry them toward the shaded part of the roof. Each movement is quiet and unhurried. Morning isn't a rush here, it's a blessing. As you descend the narrow rooftop steps, you hear the sounds of renewal all around you. A potter splashes cool water over his hands to soften clay. A shepherd clicks his tongue to gather his goats. A woman hums a morning tune as she shakes out a woven cloth. The smell of burning straw and warming bread begins to drift thinly through the village, faint at first, then stronger. Breakfast is beginning, but before that, there is the morning walk. Not a deliberate ritual, not a ceremony, just a quiet act the entire village seems to share without needing to speak of it. People step out of their homes and walk toward the fields or the riverbank, not working yet, just walking, waking the body, greeting the land. You follow the path leading toward the Nile, and the early light gives everything a soft, golden edge. It's as if the world is gently outlined, like a drawing waiting to be filled with the colors of the coming tasks. A young man walks ahead, carrying a small basket. He glances back at you with a friendly nod, then continues toward the shallows to gather fresh reeds. Another man passes you carrying a wooden staff and a coil of rope. He's headed to check on his oxen. A woman with her hair wrapped in a linen scarf walks barefoot along the path, humming softly, a newborn tied against her chest in a simple cloth sling. The walk is not long, nor is it short. It's simply right. The air is cooler now, surprisingly cool given what you know the day will become. You inhale, and the breath tastes almost sweet. The scent of damp soil rises from the fields, the smell of last night's dew warmed by the first sunlight. As you move closer to the Nile, the morning deepens. A group of women gather near the water's edge. Some kneel to rinse earthen jars. Some wash small cloths against smooth stones. One woman splashes her face with river water, gasping softly at the cold. She laughs, a bright sound that skims across the water and dissolves into ripples. A boy stands knee-deep in the river, helping his father guide a fishing net. The father calls out quiet instructions, pointing toward the water's surface. The boy nods solemnly, taking his task seriously. His small hands grip the net with determination. The father smiles, not at the fish they might catch, but at the boy's pride in learning a craft older than their family, older than their village, older than history itself. A little farther down, a group of farmers kneel to inspect the soil near the irrigation dikes. They scoop up handfuls of earth, crumble it between their fingers, nod thoughtfully. Their work hasn't begun yet, but their planning has. In Egypt, success is often born in these early morning considerations. You step to the water's edge. The Nile is impossibly calm now, a thin mist hovering above its surface like a veil. The rising sun paints the river in colors that don't exist anywhere else. Pale gold, soft lavender, warm bronze. A bird skims across it in a single graceful arc. The grandmother arrives beside you, leaning lightly on a walking stick. How she managed to descend the roof, gather her morning shawl, and catch up with you so quickly is a mystery only grandmothers understand. She doesn't say a word. She simply looks at the water, and after a moment, she smiles, not at the river, but at the morning itself. Because this quiet hour belongs to her. She dips her fingers into the Nile, then touches her forehead. You mimic her without needing instruction. The water is cold, sending a tiny shiver down your spine. A gentle shock, a reminder that day has begun. She nods in approval. More villagers arrive. A young couple carrying a basket of bread to be baked by the communal oven. An elder man stretching his back as he looks toward the horizon. Two children holding hands, still sleepy, their eyes reflecting the early light. And as the village gathers softly along the banks, something subtle happens. The day takes shape, not through announcements, not through commands, but through presence. The world awakens fully. The Nile glimmers. The breeze warms. People begin drifting into their tasks. A man lifts a hoe to begin tending to the first row of crops. A woman walks home with her jar filled. A group of children race toward the market, laughing, suddenly wide awake. Someone begins grinding grain. Someone else feeds the birds kept near their home. And the village hums gently with renewal. You stay by the river a little longer, watching morning bloom across the landscape, watching the light build itself carefully across the fields, watching the people you've come to know through their rhythm, their silence, their laughter, their rituals. There is work to be done soon, food to prepare, crops to tend, tools to repair, lives to continue. But you'll walk a little further first, because there is one final part of a day in ancient Egypt, a part that shows not just how people lived, but what they believed about life itself. After all, a day in Egypt is never only about living. It's about meaning, memory, connection, and the invisible threads that tie every sunrise to every ancestor. You linger by the Nile as the sun climbs a little higher. Its light warming the back of your neck in a way that feels gentle for now, almost affectionate. The mist along the river finally lifts, revealing the soft shimmer of the reeds and the mirrors of still water between them. Birds hop from stalk to stalk, shaking droplets into the air like tiny beads of glass. People begin peeling off toward their tasks, some to the fields, some to the workshops, some back toward the village ovens where the day's first bread will soon take shape. But a few villagers follow a different path, one that curves away from the river and toward the low, sandy rise beyond the green strip of farmland. The grandmother touches your arm lightly, a silent invitation. You follow. This path leads not to work, but to memory. As you walk, the ground changes beneath your feet. Soft earth gives way to firmer soil. Then to sand, the desert's first whisper. The air grows stiller, the breeze less playful. The sounds of the village fade behind you until only your footfalls and the faint flapping of distant birds fill the silence. Up ahead, simple rectangular structures appear, mud brick tombs, low and unadorned, yet saturated with meaning. These are not royal monuments or towering pyramids. These are family tombs, ordinary tombs, the resting places of ancestors whose names were spoken only within this village, yet whose memory holds the same weight as kings to those who loved them. You approach with the others, slowly, respectfully. No one speaks. This silence is different from the hush before dawn. This silence is chosen. A woman kneels before the nearest tomb, smoothing the sand around its base with her palm. Another places a small handful of barley grains beside the entrance. A man with weathered hands sets down a clay bowl filled with a few drops of beer. Not wasteful, symbolic. Offerings here don't need quantity, they need sincerity. The grandmother bends carefully and places a single lotus petal on the threshold of one of the tombs. She stays there for a moment longer, fingers resting lightly against the brick, eyes closed. Not mourning, communing, connecting, honoring. You feel a gentle tug inside your chest as you watch. In ancient Egypt, the boundary between the living and the dead wasn't sharp. It wasn't frightening. It wasn't strange. Death wasn't an end. It was a continuation, a step sideways into a world parallel to this one. The villagers believed their ancestors stayed near, not haunting in the way modern stories imagine, but watching, guiding, protecting. Shadows at their backs, light in their days. You kneel as well, not because you fully understand the ritual, but because some part of you knows instinctively that stillness and humility belong here. Your fingers touch the sand. It's cool, calm, settled. Someone murmurs a quiet blessing, a hope for good harvests, for safe children, for peace. The kind of prayer that could be offered in any century. The grandmother whispers something softer still, a name perhaps. Her voice trembles, but gently, like touching a memory wrapped in love rather than sorrow. A young girl steps forward and draws a small shape in the sand with her fingertip, a circle surrounded by 4 short lines. You recognize it, the ancient Egyptian symbol for the sun rising, a wish for renewal, for strength, for one more good day. The girl finishes and smiles shyly at you, as if including you in the ritual simply by letting you witness it. You rise slowly. The village behind you is now fully awake, voices traveling faintly across the fields. But here, among the tombs, time feels different, thicker, softer, wider, like standing in the fold of a fabric woven from countless mornings. You begin walking back, following the villagers down the sandy path. The grandmother walks beside you, leaning lightly on her stick. She doesn't speak until the tombs are far behind. The green fields ahead once more. Then she says something simple, voice soft and slow. We greet the living and we greet the dead. Both give us the day. You don't need translation. The meaning settles into you easily. As you re-enter the village, the hum of morning tasks greets you once more. The potter's wheel turning, the blacksmith's gentle tapping, children's laughter bouncing between walls, the scent of newly baked bread drifting like a promise. Life resumes fully. Work begins, voices rise, tools clink, but something inside you has shifted. You've seen the circle now, the one Egyptians lived by without needing to write it down. Morning light, daily labor, evening rest, night shelter, dawn's renewal. Memory carried quietly, life held gently. And after witnessing how the day begins and ends in ancient Egypt, there remains only one final thing to see: how meaning threads through all of it, how beliefs shape the smallest actions, how every gesture, every task, every offering, every shared piece of bread reflects a worldview older than writing. You've walked through their day. Now you will understand their world. The village is fully awake now, humming with a warm human rhythm that feels both ancient and familiar. You stand near the edge of the fields, watching as the world opens into its day once more. Tools lifted, water jars carried, animals coaxed from their pens. Yet beneath the surface of these small tasks, something deeper moves, something invisible but unmistakable. Belief, not loud, not dramatic, not dogmatic, but present in every gesture, like an extra heartbeat carried quietly beneath the skin. You begin to walk through the village one last time, seeing everything with new eyes, eyes that now understand the silent threads tying this world together. A woman grinding grain isn't just making flour, she's honoring the goddess who gave her fields. A man shaping clay isn't only crafting a pot, he's participating in creation itself, echoing the gods who shaped the world from Nile mud. A child drawing symbols in the dust isn't simply playing. He's practicing the language through which his people understand eternity. And the air, warm already, shimmering faintly, seems to hum with a meaning it didn't carry before you witnessed the night, the dawn, the walk to the tombs. You pass by the potter's workshop again. His hands move with the same deliberate grace as yesterday, but you now understand what you didn't before. Every vessel he shapes is a small miracle. Clay, water, fire, three primordial forces turned into something that will hold food, carry offerings, store oil, cradle a family's survival. Nothing here is just anything. A basket is not just a basket. A loaf of bread is not just food. A jar of water is not simply a container. Every object is a relationship. Between people, between land and labor, between life and meaning. You keep walking, and the villagers nod at you with easy familiarity now. You've seen their night. You've shared their dawn. You've walked beside them into memory. In a place like this, such things matter more than names. A group of children sit in the shade near a wall, arranging small stones into patterns. One girl draws a circle in the sand and places a stone in the center. When she looks up at you, she taps the stone lightly and says a single word in Egyptian, one you recognize from the scribe's workshop: Ra, the sun, the giver, the keeper of the day. She smiles shyly when you nod in understanding, then returns to her play. Even the smallest children carry the stories of their world effortlessly, as if they were born holding them. You round a corner and find yourself near the communal ovens. Women pull warm bread from clay chambers, arranging the loaves on mats to cool. You recognize the smell instantly, the same soft, sour warmth that soothed you last night. One woman tears off a small corner of a loaf and hands it to you. You accept it with both hands, the way you've seen others do. It's not just bread, it's gratitude, nourishment, connection. The flavor is perfect, warm, familiar, grounding. She smiles, then turns back to her work. A group of elders sit near the shade structure, discussing the level of the river with the seriousness of diplomats. But today, after everything you've seen, you understand why. The Nile isn't just water, it's the spine of their world. Giver, taker, protector, judge. Its moods carve the future. You walk with the breeze toward the edge of the fields, where the green meets the beginning of desert. A stark line, a boundary between life and the quiet eternity beyond. The sand stretches outward, pale and endless, but not empty. To the Egyptians, the desert was not nothingness. It was a reminder of chaos kept at bay, of a world maintained through order, ritual, and memory. You stand for a moment at that boundary, listening, feeling the heat grow slowly on your skin. Behind you, the village continues its morning rhythm. Ahead of you, the desert offers its silent promise. Both belong to this civilization. Both shape the people who call it home. As you turn back toward the village, you carry a new understanding with you. Egypt isn't just a place of monuments and kings and painted tombs. Those are only the echoes of something older, quieter, more important. Egypt is a rhythm, a way of moving through the world, a balance between night and day, work and rest, memory and hope. And now that you've walked their day, you feel that rhythm inside yourself. Slow, warm, steady, like the Nile, like breath, like the whisper of sand across stone. You return to the rooftop one last time as the sun climbs higher. The family who hosted you waves from below. The grandmother smiles, lifting her hand in a gesture filled with more meaning than words could hold. You sit on the roof, just as you did the night before, and look out at the shimmering horizon. The village pulses with life, quiet, calm, eternal. For a moment, the world feels very still, very right, very old, and you breathe in the dusty, fragrant, sun-warmed air, knowing that in some quiet corner of yourself, ancient Egypt has made a home. Its rhythm will walk with you long after you return to your own time. The day in ancient Egypt has ended its circle, but it will begin again tomorrow, as it always has, as it always will. Sleep-friendly fade out, a warm breeze, soft silhouettes of palm trees, the slow whisper of the Nile, and your mind drifts gently into stillness. The story rests now, and so can you.